Hey everybody, and welcome to Our Planet Trivia with WWF-Canada and the Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup. My name is Emily and I work for OceanWise, and this event is part of a 4-event series happening here on Facebook Live. For each event, we are going to be watching 2 episodes of the Our Planet documentary series and then competing in trivia with nature lovers across the country. So this is event number 3 of 4, and be sure to catch our next one and our last one on July 10th. So to participate in the trivia, it will have been useful to have watched the High Seas and Coastal Seas episodes of the series, but it's not necessary. You can definitely still stick around and do really well without that. So the High Seas episode took us on a journey around our planet through the world's largest ecosystem, the open oceans. And the Coastal Seas episodes gave us a look at the rich community of plants and animals working together in our coastal waters. So today we are extremely lucky to have Claire with us. Claire is an expert from the OceanWise Seafood team and is going to give us a little bit of information about sustainable fishing. So thanks so much for joining us, Claire, and I will hand it over to you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for that introduction, Emily. Oh, my apologies, a bit of nature happening in the background here. Thank you for having me online for this event. BBC Earth Productions are among the many reasons why I decided to get into marine conservation in the first place, so I am really thrilled to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Claire Dawson, and I am the science lead for OceanWise Seafood, which is a program that helps educate consumers and businesses about sustainable seafood, and of course, to be able to locate and purchase that seafood. You might have seen our program symbol around at a participating restaurant or retail store near you, as we have many amazing partners all across Canada. Our program makes recommendations on thousands of seafood products that are caught and farmed around the world. And we assess both wild caught and farmed sources. And this is really key because over half of the seafood we now consume is farmed. So that's something that we need to keep in mind when we're assessing the sustainability. I'm so glad that we're bringing attention here, firstly, to the coastal seas, as they are critical to all life on Earth. Globally, over 90% of our fishing activity is happening in coastal seas. So these are in seas that are close to the shoreline here. And this is quite simply because these waters are the most productive on Earth. It's here in the shallower seas that sunlight is actually able to penetrate. And this kickstarts the food chain by propelling a growth of phytoplankton, which is the base of most marine food webs. Where there's lots of phytoplankton, there's also a lot of fish. So that's why our coastal seas are so important. And protecting them from overfishing is absolutely essential. Globally, 3 billion people rely on seafood as an important source of protein, and hundreds of millions more are reliant on the sector as a whole for their livelihoods. So it's essential we manage fisheries sustainably as a global community so that we can continue to feed ourselves and keep these essential ecosystems intact into the future. To do that, we need to manage them properly, we need to rebuild fish stocks, stop habitat destruction, restore critical habitats, and curb our pollution, in particular our global addiction to plastic. But the good news is if you want to start doing something about it, you can access all our information on how to find sustainable seafood on our website, seafood.ocean.org. And with that, I think we're ready to dive into the questions.
Thank you so much, Claire. It's really fascinating to learn more from you, and it's amazing how much we rely on our oceans, and it's definitely important that we continue to manage them more sustainably. So as you said, I think we'll get started. Please remember to just write your answers in the chat box. We'll give everyone a little bit of time to brainstorm answers before we move on to the next one. And each question will be worth 1 point if you wanted to tally up and figure out your score at the end. Okay, so first question. Giant kelp grows in dense stands known as kelp forests. How high can giant kelp grow?
And I love this question because kelp are so interesting. They are among the world's fastest growing plants. So when the conditions are right, they can grow a lot. And this is really useful because kelp ecosystems are incredibly productive and they are among our most diverse ecosystems on Earth. They're home to some of our favorite creatures like otters, and they sequester a ton of carbon. So they're really important.
So we have 30 meters. That's pretty close. Does anyone else have any other guesses? Oh.
So the answer is 50 meters high. So 50 meters high, and these can actually grow a foot a day, which is really interesting. So it's no secret that kelp is among our favorite here in Canada. We've got a lot of it off the coast of BC too.
It's crazy. So in the shallow seas of the Everglades National Park, how much more carbon dioxide does seagrass absorb compared to the same area of rainforest?
And I've got a hint for you all here that we are looking for a percentage. So the correct answer will be in percentage form. And these are actually just amazing. Previous to understanding some of these seagrasses better, we didn't know that they could sequester quite as much carbon as they can. And it turns out they are an essential sink. So if we can protect these habitats into the future, they'll in turn do us a huge favor by getting rid of lots of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Time's up. Oh,
there we go.
We have our answer. It's 35% more. So seagrasses, one species in the near shore, can absorb 35% more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere than a rainforest, which is full of, a diversity of species.
That's really surprising. So our next question, in 2016 and 2017, how many kilometers of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia was bleached?
This is always a sad question to see because it is more than you're probably thinking it is. And just a reminder that corals get bleached when the seawater around them rises to a level that's too high for them to handle. So what they do is they expel their symbiotic zooxanthellae, which are the creatures they rely on to feed, which leaves them looking like this white limestone skeleton. The good news is they can recover from bleaching, but if it's prolonged, it can kill the coral. And the answer is 1,000 kilometers. So 1,000 kilometers of the Great Barrier Reef, unfortunately, was bleached in 2016 and 2017. So what we need to do is focus on doing everything possible to avoiding further increases in temperature in the global seas.
Absolutely. So next question, many of the world's fish stocks are in serious decline as a result of, unsustainable fishing. What fraction of the world's fish stocks have already collapsed?
So as I mentioned before, we have to fish sustainably. The answer is not that we shouldn't fish anymore because, of course, so many people rely on that, firstly, for their employment and actually, firstly, for their nutrition and to be able to feed their families, second of all, for employment. But we need to be sure that we're managing these sustainably. Overfish stocks means that we've continuously taken out too many of those fish and they were unable to replenish. So what fraction of the world's fish stocks are in that state of collapse? And the answer, unfortunately, is 1/3. So about 33% of all our fish stocks globally are overexploited. So what we need to do is focus on rebuilding those stocks as well as proper management of the remaining 2/3 so that we don't overfish those in turn.
Definitely. The next question, what island in Indonesia is one of the few places on Earth where biodiversity is actually increasing?
So here's a good news question here. And I love this question because it's a dream of mine to go to this place and scuba dive. This place was fully protected in 2007, and the recovery really has been miraculous. In this place, there are 25 times more sharks than there were a decade ago, and about 3 times more fish. So, the results of concerted conservation efforts do pay off and strong protections as well. And the answer is Misul. So this is an island in the Indonesian archipelago. The area specifically is called Raja Ampat, and it lies right in the heart of the Coral Triangle. So this is just the first bit of Indonesia just west of the island of New Guinea.
So our next question, what is the most plentiful fish on the planet?
And this question, again, very interesting here. One of the reasons, unfortunately, that this is the most plentiful fish on the planet is largely due to the fact that humans do not fish this. So a hint would be, it's not something you've ever seen on a menu before. You're not likely to have it in your fridge or freezer at home right now because we don't fish for it. And they do spend most of their time hiding way, way deep down. And they only come to the surface to feed and other things like that. So couple more seconds here to guess what the most plentiful fish on the planet is.
I'm seeing bristlemouths. Oh.
But the answer is lanternfish. These small silvery fish are no longer than really the size of your finger, but they are a favorite food of a number of our favorite species like dolphins and sharks and other larger fish like tuna, so really important to the food web.
Our next question, so deep sea corals have stinging cells in their tentacles to catch passing prey. What animal sometimes steals their prey?
So this might seem like a bit of a sneaky tactic, right? You've got a deep sea coral and another animal that's coming in there to steal their prey, but the truth about the deep sea is times are tough down there. There is no sunlight penetrating all to the bottom. So coming across food is difficult, right? So we kind of applaud this kind of behavior. I think it's really sneaky, but also really smart for this worm, for this species to to catch their prey. So let's see if everyone got the right answer, which is the bristle worm. And sorry about that. That was a...
That's okay, a little hint for everyone.
Yeah, so the answer is it's not easy being a bristleworm. You can't move around that much, right? And in the deep sea, it's a food desert. So they got to do what they can to survive.
So the next question is, what plant produces half the oxygen in the air that we breathe?
Yeah, so many people don't know this, but every second breath you take, you can thank the ocean for doing that because these live in the ocean and photosynthesize for us. So this plant, it makes up the base of most marine food webs. And another hint will be that I actually talked about it a little bit in my introduction. But wherever this plant exists, there's also going to be tons and tons of marine life because this really is one of the bases of many marine food webs.
I'm seeing plankton in the chat. Could it be? We'll see. And yes, good job.
Yes, the answer is phytoplankton. So a cool thing about plankton actually is that it's a general term that refers to anything that's microscopic, that's really suspended in the water. And we can have both phytoplankton, which are tiny plants, and zooplankton, which are both tiny animals and baby animals.
That's an amazing fact to know. And then the next question is, what is the most prized fish in the sea?
So a hint on this one, it is a prized fish because they are highly valuable. We often see news articles about record-breaking sales for these fish at auction. I believe the highest price someone has ever paid for a single one of these fish that was huge was about $3.1 million.
Wow.
So because of that, we see a lot of overfishing on these. And in the Pacific, this species is actually only sitting at about 3% of its historic biomass. And the answer is the bluefin tuna, which is awesome. Bluefin tuna are actually a warm-blooded fish, which is really interesting. Most fish are cold-blooded, so they have to adapt to, the environment around them by moving to wherever the water is suitable. But bluefin actually are warm-blooded.
And then our final question, from what distance can black-browed albatrosses follow a scent?
Seabirds are incredible. I am constantly astounded to learn about, especially ocean-going ones like these or frigates, how long they actually stay out at sea for just to hunt for that meal. Some of them are out at sea for weeks at a time before ever returning to land. And we know that albatrosses, of course, are also highly exposed to plastic pollution these days. We often see those very gripping photographs of them with lots of plastic pollution in their stomachs. So need to protect these guys from that. So the answer is 20 kilometers. So imagine if you could smell food from 20 kilometers away. It's just incredible.
Okay, so that was our last question. If everyone wants to tally up their points, and feel free to put them in the chat box so we can see. I'm really curious to see if anyone got 10 out of 10. I know I did not. So go ahead and put them in the chat. And thank you so much, Claire, for all of your knowledge. We really appreciate you signing on with us today. And please make sure that you check out our next one on July 10th for Plastic Free July. And Claire, I don't know if you had any final remarks.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much for having me here. And if anyone else is interested who joined us today to learn more about sustainable seafood and what OceanWise is doing to be part of the solution there, please head to our website, seafood.ocean.org, and you can find everything you need to know and more.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.